Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has fired more than a third of his 2024 campaign staff. 38 people have been let go since the start of the second quarter. DeSantis' campaign manager said the move is meant to put him in the best position to defeat President Biden. And it comes as DeSantis lags behind former President Trump in national and early state primary polls. So CBS News political director Fin Gómez is joining us now to talk a little bit about what's going on. So listen, I mean, just the other day, we talked about how he let go 10 people. And I think Major Garrett had said those people are probably going to be absorbed into one of his super PACs or something along those lines. But can they absorb all the rest of the folks that are suddenly without a job? What's going on with the campaign?
Yeah, it's unlikely that they'll be able to do that, or that they will do that. But what is going on with the campaign, Anne-Marie, speaking to insiders, Republican operatives from different campaigns to get their assessment as well, but that it's basically because the DeSantis campaign has stagnated after a sort of bungled rollout a couple months ago. He really hasn't gone up in the polls. Yes, he has remained in that second place, second to Trump, but by a wide margin. And by him cutting the size of his presidential staff, reducing by by more than 1/3 of the payroll, having it swell to 90 people in its first month. It also shows that these moves show that they're listening to internal donor criticism as well. Republican donors have been spooked by his sort of lackluster rollout, and with these two rounds of cutbacks, part of that is that the DeSantis leadership, the campaign leadership, is addressing that to those donors and some other supporters. It also may indicate, Anne-Marie, that the next quarter could be a tough one for Ron DeSantis. He didn't get that $20 million in the first 6 months, but he only starts in July with $9 million to spend in his campaign.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, he raised $20 million for his campaign between April and June. But the challenge here is that the money's coming from big donors, not necessarily from small donors.
Right.
So just explain to the viewers what that means in terms of access to more information down the road, more money down the road, but also what that means about the level of support.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, Anne-Marie, because it contrasts, these top dollar donors and small dollar donors, essentially. And some of these top dollar supporters of Ron DeSantis have already capped out. Capped out is meaning that they've already spent the amount that they're allowed to spend for this cycle. So they can't go back to those same people. When you look at small dollar donations, he has struggled with that. And that is because there is just one campaign, one person that is generating support from those small dollar donors. And that's his chief rival, former President Donald Trump. And what it shows is that the money in terms of fundraising matches the polling. And right now, those small dollar donors who are more representative of the base of the Republican Party are trending towards Trump.
Okay, so now I want to ask you about the Democrats. We've got
Sure.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. running as a Democrat. He addressed claims of anti-Semitism against him at an event in New York on Tuesday. He had said, he was sort of caught on video, falsely claiming that COVID-19 may have been created to ethnically spare Jews and Chinese people. I want to play some of what was said.
I have friends who are Holocaust survivors. I have friends who are children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. And I understand the pain of anti-Semitism to those people. And I do not want to contribute to that pain.
So what else did we hear from RFK yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, he also said that he should have been more careful about what he said because he knows that anything he will say will be distorted and weaponized against him. He really just doubled down, Anne-Marie, in his comments made from that stumble at that press dinner this month where he said that COVID had been, quote, ethnically targeted and Caucasians and black people while Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people had greater immunity. This false claim was shot down by various groups and civil rights groups. It was this event last night was to respond to that. He also said, but essentially again, these remarks that his own family denounced for being deplorable and untruthful are at the root cause of this. His poll numbers have dropped though recently in New Hampshire, where he's trying to make a stay, Anne-Marie. He's down to like single digits against President Biden.
Wow. All right. Fin Gómez, thank you very much.